And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to
Hello,
another
everybody.
VanHack webinar. I'm Ilya, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Rodrigo, who is
Nice to meet
a
you.
game developer from Brazil that got hired in Canada. And he's been telling his story about how he got hired and his work experiences, his life story. We're going to hear all about it. But first, before we get started, as always, hey, everybody, good to see you here. Hi, Rodrigo, Helene, Dipin, Vladimir, all you guys. Michael, if you could just please say yes, you can hear me in the chat. It should be on, I think, this side of your screen. Hey, Arthur. So this is a live webinar. Hey, Thomas. We like to interact with you guys. You know, you're here to spend some time with us, and we want to make sure it's valuable for you. Hey, Bukala, good luck on your interview soon. I'm not sure if I can share that, but good luck. Hey, Chisholm, cool. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces or familiar names, at least from the VanHack platform. Anyway, good to see all you here. Audio's good. Okay, well, let's get into it. So, Rodrigo, welcome to VanHack Webinar Success Case. Congratulations for being here.
Thank you.
It's super exciting. So let's start off with the simple question. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? Give us the background, please.
All right. So I'm a Brazilian Unreal game developer. I'm specified in Unreal, C++, and blueprints and anything that comes with it. I'm also an artist, and my background is I am graduated in digital media design, but by the end of my course, I started working with programming by myself. I'm a self-taught programmer because I wanted to make some things interactive, and it led me to start working with Flash first, so action scripts, some basic scripts, and then I went into 3D with Unity, and when I wanted to make things with greater graphics and more complex physics, etc., I learned Unreal. And 10 years later or so, that's where I am now.
Wow, cool. Sounds very specific and pretty impressive. Congratulations.
Thank
By
you.
the way, when I just made the screen larger, I don't know if you guys can see it on your side, but I can see you have a little friend in the back there. Is that your cat?
Yeah, one of three.
One of three. Cool, cool. And that
Yeah,
one's going to be coming with you to Canada, right?
yeah, they are. My kids.
Awesome, awesome. Well, speaking of Canada and your background, what made you decide to kind of say, you know what, I'm gonna move myself, my three cats, and I don't know if you're married or your family across the world to this other freezing wasteland of Canada. I'm just kidding. What made you kind of say, you know what, let's go? How long have you been planning on this relocation? Some people, I ask this question because a lot of people think that you get hired really quickly. It's always very fast. I just want to hear your experience. How long did it take you?
Yeah, it was pretty fast after I make the decision. But it wasn't my first decision. I've always been a fan of the USA. I've always been a fanboy of the USA,
Cool.
and I watched too many movies, too many series. I want to be there. And since I was a kid, I thought I was born in the wrong country. But I've always thought USA. And then last year, a friend of mine, he moved to Vancouver after choosing from many cities in the world. He really did his research,
Hmm.
and he started talking to me a lot about Vancouver after he moved. Like, oh, this is super cool. This works like this, etc., etc. And I thought, well, that's really good quality of life. And I started noticing some things were completely different in the USA,
Hmm.
and they were bad compared to Canada. And then I started thinking, well, Canada seems like a very good option.
Hmm.
I got good proposals on LinkedIn for jobs in the USA with very good money,
Hmm.
but the quality of life wouldn't compare. Especially, my wife is not a big fan of the USA like me. And when
Hmm.
I told her about Canada, because she had been talking to my friend already for a long time, she was really happy. So I decided, okay, it has to be Canada. And then I
Hmm.
started searching for jobs, and yeah, I think you're gonna ask some of the questions I'm about to answer automatically. So I'll just let you
Yeah,
talk. But
let's just
that's
hear
how
it.
it
Let's
happened.
hear
My
it.
friend convinced me.
Yeah, please. So you start searching for jobs. Okay, let me take a pause. So did you have like a specific place in the U.S. you wanted to move, or was it like New York City, California, Ohio,
I always wanted to be in New York.
New York?
Always.
Cool,
The
cool.
buildings and all, even though it's super expensive, that's where I wanted to be. I like cities. I like big cities and cities that work 24 hours a day. I like
Hmm.
that.
Awesome, awesome. And just quickly, guys, I see a lot of your comments, questions. Like Thomas is saying he feels the same way that you did, Rodrigo. Like he was born in the wrong country, I guess. We have Italu here from Brazil, also wants to get hired. Guys, I'm loving all these questions. We're gonna maybe talk for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then we're gonna take your questions. So yeah, just sit tight, guys. We'll keep them coming, but exactly. Anyway,
Can I see only the questions later, so I don't have to keep an eye right now?
Yeah, no. Just like, guys, just want to tell everyone, keep mentioning these, and if like there's something that I see, I'll bring it up. I just want to make sure, like, I don't want to discourage you from adding comments, and don't feel like we're ignoring you guys. But also, I want to focus on the content and make sure we share Rodrigo's story. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they work with specific skills. Guys, I'm going to say this a lot. Make sure you've signed up to VanHack, verified your English, and applied for jobs. I know a lot of you already have done that, but if you haven't done that, please do that. And that's a good way for you to get hired. Yogesh, I know I've seen your profile before. Really awesome. Keep going. We know who you are, and we're trying to get you hired, etc. Okay, back to the story. So, Rodrigo, you wanted to go to New York City. But then your wife or your friend said, hey, let's move. You should move to Vancouver, check out Vancouver. So then how did you find your job in Vancouver?
Yeah, well, so, you start commenting with friends, things you want to do. And a friend sent me a link to a job in Vancouver. It wasn't anything to do with VanHack then. And then I said, why not? Right? My friends have been talking good things about Canada, so why not? I talked to the girl from the job interview. She told me how it would be to move and all, but nothing happened. Just didn't go to any interviews after the call, etc. So I started searching for ways to find the job, because this was just an indication from a friend. I wanted to find things for myself just to make things faster. And I started talking to more friends about it, and one of them mentioned VanHack, and he said, hey, there's this website. It's very good for programmers, and since you're a programmer, even though it's specific for games, you could try finding jobs there. And you also need to update your LinkedIn, because my LinkedIn was a mess. It had nothing from what I have ever done, and I didn't know how to use LinkedIn. So I started using LinkedIn correctly. I've uploaded all of my diplomas and all the jobs I've ever worked on, like a portfolio, really. And I opened myself for job offers, and I signed up on VanHack. And it was pretty awesome, because you don't have to pay for the basic services, and the basic services are all I needed, at least at the time. So I was really happy. I thought, well, this looks like a really good deal. And in the end, it really was. So after I signed up on VanHack, I think a week later, I had already done my English test and all. The programming test too. I think a week later, I got a proposal.
Which programming test did you do?
It's on that website that is green. I forgot the name.
Yeah, but which language? Which coding language? Just for
C++. I did the C++ test.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. There were, I think, 3 tests, and the third one I couldn't complete 100%. I was really sad about that. It was really hard, but at least it was enough to get, I think, 80% total on everything, and it seemed to be good enough. I wanted to do it again, but then I got some job offers, and I never got to do it again. And 1 week later, after completing these tests, I had 2 job offers. One of them went forward, and it was with Off-World. And after the process, I was lucky to get hired. And so it was like my second interview, not with VanHack. With VanHack, it was the first. I was doing another one. I was working with Epic Games as a freelancer before trying to move to Canada. And I talked to guys in Epic Games, like, hey, do you have jobs in Canada? Could I move there or something? And I even started an interview process with them, but Off-World their offer wasn't higher, because it's Epic Games. they have infinite money now because of Fortnite. But the place was better. I wanted to move to Vancouver, and Epic Games, I would only be able to move to Quebec, and I didn't want to go to Quebec. So I chose Off-World because of this and many other reasons that are like cultural things. I felt good with them, and you know, things that just make you feel like you're home. And I don't think I would feel like that in Quebec, especially from what I read about the weather and having to learn French in order to get my permanent residence, my resident permit. And so it would be really complicated. I've never learned French.
Cool, cool. I think it's a good time to pause here. So, yeah, wow, like I'm pretty impressed. You basically like there. Yeah. So, guys, this is not so common here, where you get hired so fast. But it does happen. How long was it between when you joined VanHack and when you had a job offer? Do you remember?
I think it wasn't even a month. It was really fast.
Wow, wow, that's crazy. Guys, that's not common, but it does happen. And then I see a lot of questions here about game developers. Marini Modi asked, we do have some game developer positions, but it's very specific, so we decided to take a break. What we're going to do is when we have game developer jobs that are more general or not so much like AAA games, then we'll post those, because a lot of the game developers we had are very, very, very like super specific positions. So yeah. And then you weren't a premium member, right? You just used the regular VanHack normal account, right? Just kind of the general account.
I never got to premium. Didn't need
Cool,
to.
cool. Yeah, exactly. So premium, just for everyone to get to know, is like people who more need help with their English. Obviously, Rodrigo speaks very good English, probably because he watched so many new American TV shows growing up as a kid, right?
Yeah, and many games.
And played many games, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. We do have a few web developer, game developer positions, and then maybe I'll post them here in the chat. But that's cool. So how did it feel when you got the job offer? So you get the email from, I'm not sure who told you. Where were you? Do you remember this moment?
Well, the process was very under pressure because at the same time that I started talking to Off-World, I had started talking to Epic Games. So I needed to make a decision quick because Epic Games had already sent me a test to do, and if I passed the test, I would have to decide if I accept their offer or not. And Off-World was kind of doing things at the same time. So I've already passed their test. I was about to do the technical interview with them, and then the cultural interview, and that would be it. So I would have to make my decision. After the cultural interview, they were very, very fast. Like in the first day, they sent me the test. It's some C++ things you have to read and comment what you think, if you find errors, etc. And then you have the technical interview where they asked me a lot of Unreal specific questions, some C++ specific questions too. And because I'm an artist, they had a technical artist ask me art questions too. And then after that, 2 days later, I was already on the cultural interview where they analyze if you match the team, the humor, and if they feel like you're a person they want to work with. And then after that, they send you an offer. And so the whole thing was like 1.5 weeks to the whole process. And on the last day when they sent me the offer, I had told them on the cultural interview that I was talking to Epic Games because I wanted to be really open with them. Like, hey, I'm talking to you guys, but I'm also talking to Epic Games, and I don't know where I'm gonna go yet. I don't know you really well. Maybe Epic Games is a better choice. I've always loved Epic Games. But then what happened was I had my talk to Epic Games. They have a lot of cool benefits, a lot of cool bonuses. They have quarterly bonuses. It's amazing. But it had to be in Quebec. For Vancouver, if I wanted to work in Vancouver for Epic Games, it would be in a place that I would be almost alone because they don't have a big company in Vancouver. They just have a team that would not even be the team I'm gonna work with. So I would be working like remotely in an office, which I wouldn't feel very good about. But with Off-World, everything that Epic Games offered me, besides the salary, was either the same or better. Like flexible work hours, and if you need to take a day off because you're not feeling good, that's fine as long as you deliver what you have to deliver in time. So for me, I was a freelancer and I had a company also in these 10 years. And for me, that's very important to have control of my hours. And
Hmm.
so I didn't work some work that you have to be there every day from 9 to 6 or 7, whatever.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it gets really boring for me. So I wanted to have a bit of control, and they offered me that, which for me was perfect. And it was in Vancouver, and
Hmm.
I felt really good talking to the team. So I told them when they sent me the offer, they asked me, hey, since you've been talking to Epic Games, do you want to update your offer? Because on the first interview, when I talked to them the first time, they asked me what was my salary, my what? How do you say my salary? It's not intentions. It's
Expectation. Hmm.
what?
Salary expectations.
Yeah, sorry, the expectation. So they asked me my expectation, I told them, but I told like a very average expectation that I saw on many websites. And after I passed all the interviews, since they knew I was talking to Epic Games, they asked me if I wanted to update my expectation.
Hmm.
So I said, well, to be really honest, I do. Because Epic Games never gave me an exact number. Never. They just told me, since we're a big company, we pay as much as Google, Facebook, etc. So I thought, wow, it must be amazing. And I asked for off-road the first time, the average, like 70 or 80,000 a year.
Hmm.
I saw it was like, I think in VanHack, the profile says if you're not sure, use this amount. So I used
Hmm.
that amount.
Hmm.
And once they asked me, I told, well, as a freelancer for Epic Games, I'm making almost 100 a year. So if you guys could update the value to that or something close to it, and they updated to something close to it, and I accepted it because it was Vancouver, it was a very good place to work for,
Hmm.
and they even updated the offer. So I couldn't say no to that. It was pretty cool.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that there's a lot more to a job than just, I don't know, the salary, it's or the location. It's all the factors combined. It's the place you're going to spend the most time in your life, pretty much outside of your home life. So
Yeah.
that's really cool to hear that you had two offers. That's not common again. You must be a really good developer. That's
I hope
awesome.
so.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, I shared a game developer job here in the chat. If any other game developers are interested, it's also in Vancouver, so check it out there. I'll post one more time, and of course, you can go to vanhack.com and see all our jobs there for other positions. So you got the job, you accepted it, but what about now? Like, of course, we're living in the pandemic, in time of COVID. Everyone, I'm guess, curious. Like, have you started your move to Canada? Are you in Canada? What's the plan? What are you doing right now?
Okay, I'm still in Brazil. It's really complicated because COVID makes everything slower. You cannot get your
Hmm.
medical exams. You can't do a lot of stuff. But the bigger problem is the situation with off-road because off-road, there's the main off-road company and there's a sub-company they've just created because of legal reasons, because they work with stuff that the main associates on the big company don't agree with. So they had to separate a piece of the company to legally work with what they do.
Hmm.
And because of that, they didn't have permission to do LMIA stuff yet. So
Hmm.
what happened is they've been working this process of legalizing the company for hiring people abroad, etc. And right now, I think this week I'm gonna get my my LMIA finally. So it's
Nice.
something that's
Nice.
really slow.
Hmm.
But I understand it's not like something they're not delaying on purpose. I totally understand. They had a lot of contracts to sign, and it's really hard to make meetings nowadays with the COVID situation. So
Hmm.
everything's
Hmm.
lower. But it happens. I've talked to people in VanHack just to make sure if it's a normal thing, and they said yes, it happened a lot of times before, but the process never was canceled or anything. The person always moved anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm very tranquil. I'm not like, oh, am I gonna move? Am I not? So I'm very tranquil. The only thing that still bothers me is I'm not in Canada yet.
Hmm.
And there's a problem. The HR person there told me these days that it
Yeah.
seems when you get a work permit now, because of the COVID situation, you can move to Canada, the person that has the work permit, not the rest of the
Mhm.
family. So if I decide to go as soon as possible, I'm gonna have to leave my wife until she can go, which is we don't know when. So that gets
Actually,
complicated. It's
yeah,
a
that's
big
actually not
decision.
true. So what happens when you get a work permit is you actually your wife also gets a work permit. The way the Canadian immigration system works actually different from the U.S. is that when you get hired as a skilled worker to come to Canada, you get a work permit, and your spouse also gets a work permit. You get a work permit connected to your company, and your spouse gets a work permit connected, not connected to any company, an open work permit. So yeah, we had two van hackers, or one come single and one come with her husband. So, and her husband has an open work permit, and they were able to travel together. So yeah, don't worry about that. But the bigger problem right now is that you work permits are being issued very slowly. Like there's that after you apply for a work permit, usually it takes 10 business days, like 2 weeks. Now they were on pause, and we're not sure when it'll be. Like we're hearing that this week it'll start moving again, but there's probably a big backlog, so it'll take I don't know, one month maybe, or maybe 1.5 months. So don't worry about that right now. Once you get your LMIA, you're going to need to apply for your work permit, and you apply together with your spouse. But yeah, you will need to do quarantine for 14 days. That is true.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I, I guess just kind of for everyone to understand, right now what's happening is just, people get hired, they're working remotely like Rodrigo is, and then in the next, let's say, 2 3 weeks, 1 month, they'll have their visas approved, and then afterwards they can come to Canada, or other countries that people get hired in. So yeah. Cool. So how are you enjoying what's it like working remotely with this company? Is it strange not being there? Like, what's the feeling so far?
Well, since I've been a freelancer for so many years, for me the feeling is normal. It's like what I've been doing my whole life. I've
Mm-hmm.
always worked remotely, so it's very normal for me. The thing I'm a bit afraid of is when I have to go to the office every day.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I had an experience in Germany that I worked locally for 40 days, and for me it was really cool. It was something I wasn't expecting to feel that good about, because I never liked the office before. But I think the problem is I've never liked the office in Brazil because of commuting, and I don't feel really safe here in São Paulo. You can't go out too late, and there's a lot of problems. I've been mugged several times.
Mm-hmm.
But in Germany, I felt really good. I was never afraid of walking during the night. Of course, I wasn't like in Stuttgart or a big city. I was in a countryside,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it felt really secure. And then I thought, well, maybe I could get an office job in a place that I could feel safe. And after my friend told me about Canada so much and how he feels safe and he can use his cell phone while walking on the street, things you cannot do in Brazil, I
Yeah.
thought, well, I'd probably feel safe there too, and it would be a nice place to work in an office. So I'm a bit afraid of adapting to working in an office for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as for working remotely, for me it's pretty normal. They are really cool. They have a Slack, so we keep talking on Slack. It's like everybody's really close. When you ask questions, other people answer fast, and when you're mentioned, you just get the notification pop up on your screen, so you just answer too, and it feels like you're close to everybody. And we have almost daily meetings. That's something that's a bit it bores me. It bothers me a bit. Too many meetings, but
Mm-hmm.
they are useful. We have like two technical meetings during the week. One of them is for presenting to no, two technical meetings. I think it's Monday and Friday, and then
Mm-hmm.
on Tuesday we have a meeting with the clients to show them what we're doing for them. And Wednesday is the only day we don't have a meeting. And on Tuesday we have the general company meeting. So everybody that works for the company, they are like 15 people. everybody that works for the company talk how their weekend was and what they've been doing with their lives. So it keeps you close to people, even though it's remote. So you get to know people, you get to make jokes, you get to understand what jokes you can or cannot do. When you get closer to people. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I feel like I'm working with them, and I can't wait to be really working there with them.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. That's I think that's it is nice being remote, and you get to have this experience being there with like virtually on Slack and stuff and in the meetings. But I think it is different. Really you can't replace being there in person. At least every once in a while. What I'm seeing, guys, is like companies. A lot of them are 100% remote, like because VanHack we're remote as well. But a lot of them want to be able to meet you once in a while or more often. So it's a kind of interesting, how could I say, balance between the two, and just having that ability, right, to be flexible is pretty cool. So nice. What tips do you have for other people? Like you've gone through this process, you got hired, basically you got 2 job offers in 1 month. What tips do you have for other people that can are trying to do the same? We have a few hundred of your best friends here trying to get hired abroad as well. What would you tell them to do?
All right. Well, I've always been very antisocial, and I think the first thing you gotta learn is how to deal with people, how to take criticism. Always laugh, even if you're not laughing inside. Always laugh while answering something or being criticized by something you did. That's the first thing. So people have to think you're cool, even if you don't feel like you are. I don't feel like I'm a cool person. I'm very antisocial. So, but I know how to behave cool. So that's the first thing you gotta learn. You gotta learn how to deal with people and be a nice person to others. Um, that automatically makes you good for a work environment, because when people get to you and say, "Hey, I think this thing you did could be better," you already know how to answer. You don't take it personally. You have to be logical about it, especially with programming, because it's not like art. Art's bad because when someone's tell you that something is bad, it's because of taste. Programming, no. Programming, either it works or it doesn't work. So, or it can work faster.
Nice.
So, so it's not about opinion. There's a logic behind it. So you just discuss what could be better, what could be done. So dealing with people, if you have very strong opinions about stuff, try not to share. Like, I have some strong opinions about stuff that a lot of people disagree with, and it's not something I lie about. I just don't enter the subject, just to avoid the subject. I don't like lying. So if you ask me, I'm gonna answer honestly, even though I know it's gonna become a big discussion. But I just try not to touch the subject. And that's as a person. Now, as a worker, you gotta put yourself out there. The thing that really changed my life is when I started working with Unreal, I had to develop a Kinect plugin to make Kinect work in Unreal. And at the time there was one, but it was really bad. It would compile with a lot of errors, and it was just problem. And so I created my own. And after 3 years using it, and it was very improved and it was better than the other one, I published on the marketplace. And because of that, a lot of people got to know me. So I got jobs with freelancing for Warner, because Warner wanted to make for the Shazam interaction. They wanted the person to say Shazam and become and see themselves as Shazam. And that was made with my plugin and many other things too. So that's because I put myself out there, and it wasn't just the Kinect plugin. That's a paid thing. I had a plugin for using Arduino with Unreal that I didn't make it, but I improved it, and I published my improved version on the Unreal forums. And I also got many jobs because of that, because of people trying to use my Arduino plugin, and they didn't want to learn from scratch how to do it, and they just hired me to do what they wanted. And then because of that, you get to know other people, and that's how I got to a gig on Germany. And I've worked with Americans a lot too. And you got to put yourself out there. That's either becoming famous for something you did in the area you work for. So I did these plugins in Unreal and they are almost like a monopoly. There were no good plugins for the things I did. That's why I did them and I published.
Yeah.
Um, And the other thing is, at least for me, YouTube. So I did many Unreal tutorials in YouTube, how to create materials, how to edit stuff in Unreal, how to work with blueprints, etc. And you get known also because the person, I think people think if he knows how to teach it, he knows how to do it.
Mm,
So that's another way. And YouTube gets a lot of views depending on what you do. If you have good
mm,
content. So
mm,
something I don't like is tutorials where the person says, okay, so to move the mouse, you get the mouse, move and click. I
mm,
like tutorials where the person says you move the mouse because if you don't move the mouse is not gonna go out of place. And now you click, but you click this button because this button is not going to do what you want. So I like tutorials that explain why you're doing stuff. And I started doing those tutorials for
mm,
Unreal, and I've got some jobs because of that too. And all of these jobs, they were accumulating. Like, you get a portfolio, you get cool things. I can show I worked for Netflix, I can show I worked for Warner Brothers and now Epic Games.
mm.
So you put that on your LinkedIn, on the places people are gonna look for, and I think gets you hired much faster. I think that was my luck, because of all of these things I got to do before, and it's because I put
Yeah.
myself out there. My LinkedIn was empty, and then when my friend said you need to upgrade your LinkedIn, you have nothing there that you've done, and I put there Epic Games, Warner, Netflix, etc., etc. I started getting a lot of job offers in Brazil and
Hmm.
abroad, but I
Hmm.
wanted Canada specifically, so I didn't accept most of them. But yeah,
Nice.
you gotta put yourself out there, especially where people are gonna look. So if people are gonna look your LinkedIn, put your stuff there. If they're gonna look your GitHub, put your stuff on GitHub, and that's how you get hired. You gotta be seen, and you gotta have proof of what you did.
Mm. Man, really, really good points. A lot of things to add on here. First off, guys, if you're having any issues with the sound or the quality, just refresh. Usually, that's a old-fashioned trick that works. I totally agree with you about what you just said completely. You have to be digitally present. You can't as someone who's looking for an international job, you can't just walk across the street or take a drive to the office of the company you want to work in, knock on their door, give them your resume in person, right? You wouldn't do that
Mm-hmm.
anyway in the same city, but you're not able to do that, right? So you need to be able to be digitally present. You need to be digitally visible to all the companies that are out there that are looking. So LinkedIn, GitHub for sure. I think YouTube for definitely. That's something that if you can start doing tutorial videos or teaching something that shows you can speak good English, it shows you're smart and you can explain things, all these things. Yeah, exactly, Benjamin. That you got to be seen. You got to put yourself out there for sure. It's so underrated. People think like a job is going to come to them. All of a sudden out of the sky will drop this amazing job offer. Guys, you're competing against people across the world who want to come to Canada or Europe and other countries. You're competing with all the people in those countries as well. So it's like it's pretty hard, right? Like you really have to find out in one of the individuals, and it's not just about your skill; it's also about how you show your skills. So really, really agree with that. And at VanHack we have a lot of courses, free courses about that, guys. If you haven't seen those, check them out. Of course, there's a lot of content on the internet about how to do that. But I think this idea that you have of making tutorials is one that's really, really good. If you want to make videos, maybe you can write blog posts, like write a blog post. We also have a program where you can write a blog post for the VanHack blog, for example, or just publish it on your LinkedIn as an article, and just show people who you are, and that'll really make a big difference. So yeah, cool. There was another good question. I just want to quickly change gears by Daniel. And I think I know who Daniel. He's one of the premium members. So hi, Daniel. Good to see you here. We had an interview practice class together. So he asked, how is getting paid when you're working remotely? How about taxes? It's a very good question. How is this set up for you to actually be paid and working as remote? And also you were a freelancer before. Is it any different now, or how does that work?
No, it's not different now because I can't be hired in Canada as a Canadian employee because I
Right.
don't have my visa, etc. So what I did, what they did is they made a contract in my name, so I receive as a person, and in Brazil I have to pay my personal taxes for that. So I pay a percentage on top of the value I receive. I could do it as a company because I have a company in Brazil as well, but the taxes would be higher. So since they have this difference, I chose the one that would give me the most benefit, the most profit. But that was the only difference. I could be hired as a company. So, and that was because they can't hire me right now as an employee. So they just asked me, uh, can you work for us as a contractor? And
Mhm.
that's what I had to do. So I just chose between being as a company or as a person, and I chose as a person. But it's pretty normal. And the way I receive, I don't do PayPal. Never do PayPal. At least in Brazil, it's terrible because the taxes are 10%. So you lose 10% of wherever you get. It's horrible. So what I do is they make me a transfer, a wire, to my
Mhm.
bank, and it's not directly to my personal bank in Brazilian reals. It's a bank that does currency conversion, and I try to find the one with the least taxes, and everything's legal, everything's working, and that's how I did.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think now, especially with things like TransferWise, Payoneer, there's so many there's many other services as well. It should be not such a big problem to make this happen. And yeah, you do have to pay a little bit of taxes, but you know, you're you have to pay taxes everywhere, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, cool, cool. Thanks, Daniel. Nice question. And
yeah,
yeah,
guys.
well, cool. So working for a company. Sydney's asking, working for a company from Brazil give me Canadian experience to apply for some immigration process. So if you're working outside of Canada, in terms of the visa process, immigration process, it doesn't give you Canadian experience. It needs to be experience in a company in Canada. But I guess for our purposes here, there's a lot of jobs in Canada that do sponsor work visa. So you're going to be coming to Canada with a job, Rodrigo. So that's what I would say the best ones for everyone. Maybe you can answer this question, Rodrigo. Marine asks I'm not sure if he or she they signed a contract NDA, so they can't disclose the titles they worked with. So have you ever had that experience where you had to sign a non-disclosure agreement saying, "Hey, you can't talk about this job"? What do you do in that case to show your
Yeah,
work?
that's a very tough spot. I really can't show the stuff I did that I can't show. You cannot talk about it. You can't disclose it in any way. So yeah, it feels like you're losing something because it's experience you cannot show the world. So what you can do with that, I've always, because of being a self-taught programmer, I think I've always liked to do personal stuff. So I get the thing I learned with that experience and make something personal that I can show the world. So for
Mhm.
instance, when I had to really dive deeply into how to animate characters and rig them and move around, etc. in games, I couldn't show the world what I did because of learning this. And what I did was a personal project based on the Matrix because I love the movies.
Mm.
And in this personal project, I modeled Morpheus and made him animated and talk and everything that I learned before. And I learned even more while doing this project. So that's also very useful because you get even more experience with that. And that's something I can show the world. Even I cannot make any profit of it, of course, because otherwise Warner Bros is gonna sue me. But I can show the world, and it proves my experience. It's a lot of work because you have to do stuff in your personal time where you probably would like to be resting and forgetting about the hard things you do while working. Uh, but try to find something you like. Like my inspiration was The Matrix for this project. I really like the movies. Every time I watch the movie, I think like, hey, I should go back to working on that project. So it
Mm.
keeps me up to work on that. It never worked for me to try to do something just for showing off. Like,
Mhm.
I want to prove the world that I know how to do, I don't know, some super complex math with textures. I can't do that because
Right.
it's not inspiring. I'm gonna get bored and I'm gonna stop in the middle of the project. It's not gonna work. At least I can't find the motivation to do this kind of stuff. So I need to find something that motivates me, either the subject, the theme.
Mhm.
That's how I display stuff. So, for instance, I have a project that I can't show the world. It's an amazing environment, a huge museum, and I can't show anything of it to the world. Like, it's
Mm.
super realistic, it's amazing, beautiful, full of pillars and classical style stuff, and I can't show the world. So what I did with it was get the experience I got from it with materials, and I'm trying to apply that to my Matrix project. So that's what you do. It's awful. You feel like you're losing something, but if you have an NDA, I don't think there's any other options unless you can make the company agree with you on showing something from it, not all, or maybe
Mhm.
hide the name of the company. I don't know, but it's pretty tough depending
Yeah,
on the kind of you
it's a
did. You
slippery
can,
slope. You don't want to go too far and show something by
yeah,
mistake.
always ask for permission. Never try to do stuff under the hood or under the blanket. Never.
Yeah, it could be bad and ruin your entire career. Um, so, and I think this also, relates to or is important for not just game, but also for just all coding, right? Like a lot of people are not game developers here, but they're just developers, not just developers, but they developers, and that that also is something that you can do. Like a lot of people say, oh, I can't publish stuff on GitHub. Well, do a personal project and take the stuff that you learned, because it's not really about the project that you did. It's about the skills that you have, right? The knowledge that you have. So if you can show your knowledge and your skills. So Moraine, I hope that answers your question. He said more exactly while doing a job, again, he or she, sorry, a job, I'm restricted to either for profitable nor non-profitable organization. I'm not sure what you mean here about that, Maureen. I'm sorry, I don't know. Yeah, just take the skills and do it on your own. Okay, here we go. Eduardo asks, hi, thanks for sharing your career path. Can you give me some advice on how to get in the right gaming industry? 43 years old, legal administrative assistant, how I want to develop games. Okay, what's the best way for him to get started? What would you say to someone who wants to get involved in the gaming industry?
Start with an engine. Don't try to create an engine from scratch or program anything from scratch, because nowadays you have a lot to do. Because in games now you have AI, you have the graphics, you have animation, you have audio, you have dealing with textures, dealing with model, or any kind of art you're going to put in your game. So don't try to start anything from scratch. Start learning what the industry is doing now and try to find a tool that helps you with that. So right now I would recommend either Unity 3D or Unreal Engine. Even if you want to do just 2D games. For 2D, I would go with Unity 3D first. And that also means you have to pick your programming language if you don't know one yet. So for Unreal, you would have to learn how to use their blueprints and later C++, but C++ is not like super required. It's super useful, but not super required. And for Unity, you would have to learn C#. And I think C# is a very nice language. It's really hard to crash a program with C#. And yeah, that's my advice for anyone starting with games. Go with an engine. One of the famous ones, because they have documentation, they have a lot of people discussing how to use them. So if you have any problems, many people had your same problem before, so you can find the answers easily. So don't try to start something from scratch if you just want to learn.
Nice. Good feedback here. Okay, cool. Let's keep going with the questions. There was another question earlier I saw from Daniel, kind of following up on his question about the contract. I think he was just curious, were you getting paid the amount you're promised to get paid?
Yes. So let's say they offered me $100,000 a year. So what I receive is every month. I receive $100,000 a year divided by 12. And that's exactly what I receive. But that's because I'm working remotely as a contractor. So I receive that, and then I pay my taxes. And the final value I really get is after taxes. When I'm working in Canada, I know it's going to be a bit less because the taxes there are higher than I pay here as a person. But that's because of the work contract. You have bonuses I don't have working for myself. So it compensates. But yeah, right now I'm getting paid exactly what was agreed.
Nice. Yeah. Typically, most companies, especially through VanHack, but like if you're going to get hired abroad, most people are trustworthy. You always want to double check in places like Glassdoor and I don't know, doing some references. Sometimes people say, "Oh, this sounds too good to be true," or VanHack's too good to be true, but it's real. You do get that paycheck, and you get that experience and that visa,
Yeah.
all the things that you want. And we have a lot of success cases that show this. But yeah, Daniel, I totally understand your not knowing someone in another place. It's kind of scary sometimes to trust. Cool. So how long did you study to develop a game? How was like your first game experience? Ronald asks, how long did it take you to build one?
Wow, I didn't start with games exactly. So when I started, I was doing my final my how do you say that? It's like the final homework you do for college. I never remember the name in English. But I had to do that, and I wanted to be interactive. And since I was graduating in digital media design, it was like an interactive comic book with some pages. It was from Sin City, and some pages we wanted to replace with videos from the movie or have some audio playing. So I started learning how to program in Flash, so ActionScript at the time, and it was not a game exactly, just adding some multimedia to something that would be just drawn pages otherwise. And because of that, I was appointed to another job, and they asked me if I could do something that was like you answer questions, and then from the questions the user answer, you get a score, and then you offer them a product. So if it was for a beauty product company, and I did that. After that, I got on a company that asked me to do a interactive touch display. So I just have to do some effects when people would touch the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And this was getting closer and closer to games. And I until that point, I never thought about developing games. But because of these effects on the screen, I wanted to learn how to do these things in 3D because I wanted to have depth and things moving around with a 3D camera and all. And then I found about Unity, and I started learning Unity. And because Unity is a game engine, the tutorials are games, and I really like that. I found what I like to do. And at the time, I was working a lot with rendering 3D animation. I was already a modeler and an artist, uh, and I would get really bored when I had to wait for stuff to render. And on games, you have things in real time. Even though at the time the graphics were not as they are today, because today you have practically movie visuals in games. Before it wasn't like that, but for me it was amazing. I had 3D stuff in real time that I could look around without waiting for it to render. So that's how I started. And I've always liked challenges. So every time someone came to me with a project, like the first complicated one I had was I had this car in a website, and I want people to click some part of the car and add their name there. So what I had to do was I had to map the pieces of the car in textures, and every time someone clicks there, I have to find where that click points to in the texture, add the text in the texture, and make sure it's aligned with where the person clicked. So that was the first complicated thing for me in 3D. And yeah, I had to deal with trigonometry, tracing from the mouse where it hits in the car, from the car where it is in the texture, and things like that. And what I told the client was, I don't know how to do it, but I'm sure I can learn. And that's what I've always done for most of my jobs. The Kinect thing was like that. I wasn't sure I could do it, but I was sure with time I could probably do it. And in the end, I ended up doing. Yeah, many things were challenges I accepted, and many of my clients, they know me for that. So they always say like, "Hey, I have another crazy thing to ask you, and I bet you could try to do and success somehow." Because sometimes you realize it's impossible, but you tell the client right there, like, it might be impossible, but if it is, we're gonna find the closest possible solution to what you want. And that's how I've always learned more, and the jobs were getting ever closer to games. After these small applications of applying your name on something and product related stuff, I got into the pharmaceutics industry, and they would do on symposiums and fairs, their stuff, their events. They always had some games to promote some medicine. So, for instance, you are a character that represents what the medicine does in the person's body, and they wanted that to be interactive, so that would be a game. So I got a lot of games of that type to do, and that's how I built most of my gaming portfolio for the pharmaceutics industry. And then after that, you start getting anything like freelancing for multiplayer shooters or freelancing for some RPG game, um, specific games like Netflix and Warner Brothers. I did specific games for Comic Cons, things that they're not games you can find now on Steam and play, but they are experience anyhow. Always make sure you record a movie or something of the thing working to make sure you can show others later, because
That's cool.
it's hard to find.
It's a good tip.
Yeah, I think that's how I got my experience. All of these mixed things.
Yeah, no, it's so nice to hear you talking about your. It's obviously you're very passionate about it, and I think guys like take this mindset of, hey, if it's impossible, we'll find out, and if we'll figure out the best thing, the next best thing. So yeah, I think a lot of times people in their career, they kind of have this mentality that I'm just going to do the minimum. I just want to get by. I just want to have. Just I'll just do what is asked of me and nothing more.
Yeah, I really never like that. And if someone tells me you're gonna do exactly as I say, I'm already bummed down because I want to create. If you tell me, hey, I want to do this application and there's gonna be a button here and it's gonna do this, and then I come back to you like, wow, what if this button also did this and this animated, and when you click this, this explodes. That's how I've always liked to do stuff. Always get your idea and try to make it even cooler. And yeah, and I never try to do the minimum.
I think your cat wants some food here. That's it, guy. That's exactly it. I think that's something, in order to get hired abroad, you really need to have this mindset as well. Like, you need to have really good English, have good tech skills, be able to show yourself, interview, all these different things. Maybe you have to do an interview at 3 a.m. All these kind of things. I think that's something that people need to understand. It's not easy. So here, we have a few minutes here, guys. About 5 minutes. Just want to get in a few last questions. But before we wrap up, I just want to say again, thank you to Rodrigo for taking the time, and thank you everyone here. Eduardo, Mahi, Victor, Nazim, Fernando, Romeo, Dipin, and Deepak, all you guys, really, really good questions. Daniel was talking about the thesis. That's awesome. So yeah, if anyone has any last minute questions, Eduardo's asking here. You had a lot of experience, although you didn't have a LinkedIn promoting yourself. How were you able to get jobs? I guess, how are you able to, as a freelancer, get kind of your next position? Was it more from referrals or some specific? How did you get the jobs?
Mostly from referrals. And the Epic Games one, which for me was one of the most amazing that came to me, was because of my Kinect plugin. So they were looking for a C++ developer. It was like a third company contracted by Epic Games to do something for Epic Games. But I had to have contact directly with Epic Games. So for me, it was like working for Epic Games. They were searching for C++ developers, and they found my Kinect plugin on the marketplace. So probably they saw it and they thought, well, this guy must be a good C++ programmer, and they sent me an email. Hey, I saw your plugin. We are looking for a C++ developer for Unreal. You look good for the job. What do you think? And that's how I got this one. And most of them, after my 3 or 4 first years, where I was always looking for job and sending proposals for stuff I found on the internet, announcements of jobs, etc. I started being really busy with people asking me for stuff from things they saw me doing. And so that's why I tell you always, put yourself out there. You have to, because you're gonna get called. You're never gonna have to worry again about you finding a job. You're gonna get more worried about which one do I say yes to.
Nice. That's always a nice position.
I have a good question here from Everton that I'd like to answer. Rodrigo, did you practice solving algorithms in those algorithm competition websites to improve your problem-solving skills, or did you get this experience just by programming during these years? Both. Much less from the competitions, because I've always thought of the competitions like super hard and super unfair, because there's always an Asian kid who does something in 2 lines that you got like 2 pages to do. But it's pretty cool because you learn new tricks. Even if you just go to look at the solutions of others, you learn new tricks. But yeah, most of my experience was from doing stuff myself, but I only got new experience because of what I said before. I would always accept challenges. So if someone comes to me with something, hey, I know you don't know how to do that, but can you try? I'd always say yes, because it's something new I'm gonna learn. And since I've always liked these programming challenges, I've always liked to know how the CPU works, how the RAM works in a deep level. Uh, these have always been very useful for me. So yes, some competition, just a little bit, but most experience on getting challenged.
Nice. That's a good question and good answer. Cool. Any other questions here we have? I'm seeing a lot of people saying thank you, which is really nice. Thanks, guys. Glad it was helpful. Fernando, keep hanging there. It's a lot. Again, create maybe a side project, something you can show. Same as Marine. Which language are
Marcus
you
asked
working?
if I have any tips for someone starting with Unreal. Don't try to dive directly into C++ because C++ in Unreal is like its own C++. You know, you don't try to use normal C++ if you already know, uh, because Unreal has its own functions and containers and ways of doing multi-threading and dealing with events. So start with blueprints because Unreal, besides having its own C++, it has its own architecture. So start with blueprints because you can learn what actors are, how to make blueprints communicate with each other, how to find actors in the level, what is the level, how the level works, how to use tick, how to use begin play. So learn to work with the framework you have, how to use the player controller, the pawn, learn these stuff. And then once you have a very solid knowledge of that, you dive into C++ because C++ in Unreal is mostly for really advanced stuff, or when you're doing something so heavy, it gets too long to calculate in blueprints because blueprints are a bit heavy. So then you do it in C++. But first learn the framework. Don't worry about C++ at first. Understand the framework, really. Because if you try to do stuff in C++ without knowing the framework, you're just gonna trying to be breaking the engine, and you're gonna complain every day that the engine doesn't do what you want. And I know a lot of people that work like that with Unreal. It's really bad. So first learn the framework, and the easiest way to do that is with blueprints.
Nice. Good answer there. I'm seeing here a question. What do you need other than the job offer to apply for your visa? So, yeah, I guess you need to have your marriage certificate. Like, are you working on all those things for your work permit? Do you know? Can you answer that?
Yes. It's a lot of documents. You need if you're married, you need your marriage certificate. If you're not married but you have someone that lives with you, you need more documentation, much more. Like you need to do. I think it would say a legal partnership or something like that, and then you need more documents to prove that you've been living together for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Besides marriage, you need to have a diploma, so it helps a really long way if you have a graduation of any kind, even if it's just one. In my case, it's just one, and it's the most basic one. I'm not even a bachelor. My wife is she has a master's degree. Compared to me, like she's amazing for getting scored in Canadian evaluations. Mine is the basic one, but it was enough because of the experience. So if you don't have a very good diploma or degree, you need, I think it's at least 5 years of experience, 5 or 7. And because I have at least 10, it counts. What else? Many things. You have to translate a lot of stuff, officially translate. So I had to translate my diplomas, the whole program of the college, and not just my college diploma, all of the courses I did. I had to translate contracts with clients. If you are an employee, I think you have these contracts easier. Now, when you are a freelancer, get as many contracts with your clients as you can. Because in Brazil, it's very common to do stuff without any contract, just from word to from mouth word or from emails. You never have a contract, and that's bad for the documentation because you need to prove what you did. You need to have receipts from your bank. You need to get those translated as well. It's awful. You have to translate a lot of stuff. So receipts from your bank. You have to prove that that you made money working with that, because you have to prove your experience. In my case, I also needed recommendation letters from my clients, and I was lucky because I had 3 of them from which I had contracts and a good relationship. So they gave me good recommendation letters, and I could display the contracts. I also had all of the contracts of currency conversion from when they paid me, so that proves that I received the money for working with them. I think that's it. For your wife or your partner, whatever, is going to be much less things, much less. Marriage certificate too, a picture of you for the visa, a letter explaining why you want to move to Canada, why do you think you have the experience for it, but you also have to say stuff like, I have bondings in Brazil and I'm gonna miss my family, because I think for the work permission, you don't want to make it look like you want to live there forever. So you have to say things like that as well. And that's something I kind of have to lie, because, as I said, I'm antisocial and I really don't care about leaving my family. so, so for me, it was kind of a lie. I had to say I'm gonna miss some people, etc. But you have to do that. And yeah, I think that's most of the documentation, and filling a lot of forms. There are a lot of forms from the Canada government that you have to fill, and you need the numbers from the company to do that, like the LMIA number and things like that. But yeah, a lot of things have to get translated to English, and that's the most expensive part.
For sure, for sure. It's a little bit of a little bit of work, but I think it's a small sacrifice, right, to make for
Yes.
what you're going to have in return. So
Especially if you're already hired and working remotely like I am, at least you have the money to pay for all of this stuff, all of the translations we help.
yeah, that's true. I think, and I think also that's getting more common, right? Is like companies are open to having people start working remotely and having you be able to become, like getting paid and then having this documentation. And of course, if you live in a English speaking country, you don't need to have these translations. But I know most people don't live in English as a first language country here. Cool. I want to be respectful of your time, Rodrigo. I know you probably have to get to work and kind of get back to the office. I'll let you go just one more time. Thank you so much for sharing your experience here with us. I can't wait to meet you, in person in Vancouver when you move here in the next few months. We'll have to have a beer or another VanHack meetup when it's safe to do that. Guys, thank you for all the questions. Galo, Jorge, Alex, Arthur, Samuel, Alan Sar, everybody. Thank you guys so much for the questions. If one thing, the recording of this video will be on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, we're really trying to grow that, as Rodrigo was saying about YouTube. We have a ton of videos, ton of great content there, so you can subscribe. I'll show you guys where this video will be, so you can send your friends or watch it later if you miss something you wanna watch it. There's a lot of other videos as well. I don't know if you guys have seen all of our success case videos. We have like over 50. I can go on and on about all the different things on VanHack. Let's see here, VanHack success cases. Here's 52 videos, and you can learn a little bit from these guys or these people. Again, if you haven't signed up to VanHack already, please do so. Tell all your friends about VanHack, etc., etc., etc. Okay, that's it. And then Rodrigo just put his email there. So if you have any questions, just send him an email or add him on LinkedIn. I'm sure he'll be happy to share. And guys, please tell all your friends about VanHack, and we'll see you on the next webinar. I think we have another webinar actually. Last thing before we leave is we have another webinar August 5th. So we're talking. Actually, the webinar August is going to be really cool. It's going to be with Sakshi, who's a DevOps engineer from India, who moved to Toronto during COVID. So she actually relocated, and now she's living in Toronto. And she moved last month. So we're going to hear all about her journey. She applied to over 500 jobs. It was crazy, and she got hired. Also, really good to see more women getting hired in tech. And then another thing we have, I keep saying last thing, but it never is VanHack Premium Open House. We're going to have at the end of the month. We do this every month. Basically, just you guys could come to the events page on VanHack, and you can apply for them. This is all free. Open house is like a free English interview practice for those of you who want to improve your English. Okay, that was like the longest exit I've ever done. Thanks again, Rodrigo, for your time, and we'll see you
Thank
guys
you,
next
everybody.
time.
Thank you, Ilya.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.